Welcome to English Cast. Today we're diving into a mysterious and profound topic, the Bardo world in the Tibetan Book of the Dead. This ancient text is not just about death, it unveils a unique realm beyond death, challenging our conventional understanding of life and its end. Have you ever wondered what kind of world awaits us after we die?
All right, so welcome to this
Today,
deep dive.
we'll guide you into the unknown territory of the Bardo and reveal the mysterious veil of the
Chinese
afterlife.
translation of Sojo Rinpoche's I know what you might think. A book about death. Huh?
Yeah, not exactly light reading.
But before you hit that skip button, I want to share the dedication.
Yeah.
It's dedicated to all those who wish to transform their lives and discover their true nature.
Mm-hmm. That's a powerful dedication. And it really gets to the heart of what the book is about. It's not just about death.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's about using an understanding of death to really figure out how to live a fuller life, you know?
Yeah, and it's interesting because this book has resonated with so many people from all walks of life, you know,
Right.
doctors, therapists, you name it.
Absolutely.
And in the preface, there's this incredible anecdote about Sojo Rinpoche encountering death at a really young age
Oh, wow.
while traveling with his teacher.
Interesting.
It really sets the stage for how this book explores different cultural views of death, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the book contrasts the way Tibetans approach death,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
with all of their rituals and traditions and the acceptance of death as this natural part of life.
Mm.
You know, it's a stark contrast to how we in modern society tend to fear and avoid death.
Totally. There's this super vivid description of a Tibetan funeral procession in the book
Oh, yeah.
with, you know, colorful prayer flags and the deceased being carried down a mountainside.
Oh, wow.
And a whole ceremony for releasing the spirit. It's so different from the hushed, sterile funerals that we're used to.
Yeah, it really is.
Mm.
And that's a really key difference, you know. The book suggests that this Tibetan approach to death can actually help us live more fully by encouraging us to confront death consciously instead of just shying away from it.
Yeah, that's a bold claim.
Yeah.
I'm curious, how does the book actually support that idea?
So one of the central concepts in the book is the illusion of permanence. It delves into this Buddhist principle of impermanence, which basically means that everything is always changing.
Okay, intriguing. But how does that apply to, like, everyday life, you know?
Well, think about it.
Yeah.
We often cling to things as if they're going to last forever, like, you know, our possessions or our relationships,
Yeah.
even our youth.
Yeah.
But the book argues that this clinging is actually the root of suffering. We get anxious about losing things, we resist change, and all because we don't fully grasp the impermanent nature of, you know, everything.
Whoa, okay, that's a little bit of a mind bender.
Yeah.
So accepting impermanence could lead to less anxiety.
It might seem counterintuitive at first,
Hmm.
but think about it. Like, let's say you're stressing about an upcoming presentation,
Hmm.
you know, instead of getting caught up in that fear of failure, imagine acknowledging that the situation is temporary.
Mhm.
You know, the presentation will come and go, and your anxiety will eventually subside too.
Yeah.
It's about shifting your perspective from resisting change to accepting change as a natural order of things.
Wow, that's actually a super helpful way to think about it.
Yeah,
It's like taking the power away from those anxious thoughts.
exactly. And this idea actually ties into another key concept from the book, the Bardos.
Okay, the Bardos, I've heard that term before, but to be honest, I'm not entirely sure what it means.
So Bardos are these intermediate states of being that are described in Tibetan Buddhism. Think of them as transitional phases that we all go through, not just in death, but throughout life.
Oh, so there's more than just the Bardo between life and death.
Yeah, there are actually several Bardos that the book talks about, including the Bardo of life, the Bardo of death, the Bardo of dreaming, and the Bardo of becoming.
Wow, that's a lot of Bardos.
It is.
Can we maybe break those down a little bit?
Sure.
Starting with, you know, the one we're all in right now, the Bardo of life. What is that?
Well, the Bardo of life is essentially our everyday experience. You know, it's our waking consciousness, all the sights, sounds, thoughts, and emotions that make up our daily existence.
So basically just, you know, going about our day, that's a Bardo.
Yeah, in a nutshell, yes. But the book encourages us to not just sleepwalk through this Bardo,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Mm.
It reminds us to be present, to appreciate each moment as it unfolds, because even this Bardo, as we've discussed, is impermanent.
That's a really powerful reminder, especially in our super fast-paced, you know, always-on world. It's easy to get caught up and forget to just savor the experience of being alive.
Right, exactly. And that awareness of impermanence can actually make this Bardo, the Bardo of life, much richer and more meaningful.
Okay, so we're in the Bardo of life, aware of its impermanent nature. What about the Bardo of death? That one sounds a bit more intense.
Yeah, it is a very profound transition. The book describes the Bardo of death as the process that begins when we physically die and it continues until we're reborn. It's a time when our consciousness separates from our body and we encounter a whole new realm of experiences.
Okay, now I'm really curious. What kind of experiences are we talking about? Is it like what we see in movies with bright lights and tunnels?
Well, the book describes it as this journey through various states of consciousness, encountering symbolic imagery, and having experiences that reflect our past actions and the state of our mind at the time of death.
That sounds both fascinating and a little daunting. Is there anything we can do to prepare for this, Bardo, or is it all just a big mystery?
Well, the book suggests that understanding the process of death and cultivating a calm and clear mind through practices like meditation can help us navigate the bardo of death with more awareness and less fear.
Okay.
It's not about controlling what happens, but it's about cultivating a state of mind that allows us to face the unknown with courage and acceptance.
So preparing for the Bardo of death is almost like a lifelong practice.
Exactly.
Not something we just worry about at the end.
Yeah, and the book highlights the importance of living ethically and cultivating positive qualities like compassion and wisdom, as these can deeply influence our experience in the bardo of death and beyond.
That makes sense. It's almost like packing a spiritual suitcase for the journey ahead.
I love that analogy. It really captures the essence of how our actions and intentions in this life can create ripples that extend far beyond our physical existence.
Now, this whole discussion about death and bardos is fascinating, but the book also mentions this term that I'm finding a bit tricky: soul trim. What does that even mean?
Soul trim. It's a Tibetan term, and it points to something very profound: pure awareness. Think of it as the fundamental nature of your mind, that underlying clarity that exists beneath all the thoughts, emotions, and distractions.
So it's like the quiet space behind all the mental chatter.
You could say that the book suggests that this soul trim, this pure awareness, is our true nature, and it's not subject to birth or death. It's what continues beyond the physical bardo of life.
Wow, okay. That's a pretty big concept to grasp. Is there a way to connect with this soul trim while we're still in the bardo of life?
The book points to meditation as a really powerful tool for tapping into that pure awareness. It's not about emptying the mind completely, as many people mistakenly believe, but it's about cultivating a state of clear, focused attention.
So instead of fighting the mental chatter, we learn to observe it without getting swept away.
Precisely. And as we practice this, we start to glimpse that underlying clarity, that soul trim that's always present, even amidst the busyness of our minds.
This is all incredibly insightful. But I have to admit, I'm starting to feel like I need a spiritual guide to help me navigate all this. Does the book address that?
It does. The book really emphasizes the importance of having a spiritual teacher, someone who can offer guidance and support on this path of understanding. It's like having an experienced Sherpa guide you through the Himalayas. They know the terrain, they can anticipate challenges, and they offer invaluable wisdom along the way.
That makes so much sense. Having someone to help you navigate these complex concepts would be incredible. But how do you even find a genuine spiritual teacher in the first place? It's not like they have listings in the yellow pages.
You're absolutely right. Finding an authentic teacher is a significant step on this path, and the book offers some valuable advice on how to approach this search. We can delve into that in our next segment, but first, I'm curious, have you ever had a mentor or teacher who played a similar role in your life? Someone who offered guidance and helped you see things in a new light? It doesn't have to be specifically spiritual, just someone who had a profound impact on your journey.
That's a great question. And I'm sure many of our listeners have someone like that in mind too. Take a moment to reflect on those guiding lights in your own life as we continue exploring this further in our next segment. We've been exploring the Tibetan book of living and dying, and I don't know about you, but it's really got me thinking about the nature of life and death and that whole idea of impermanence.
Oh, absolutely. It's a real mind-opener.
And before we jump back into the book, I wanted to circle back to something you asked before about mentors and teachers who have guided us. Did anyone come to mind for you?
Oh, for sure. I've been really lucky to have some amazing mentors who've helped me navigate life and all its ups and downs.
Yeah.
But one that really stands out is a philosophy professor I had in college.
What made them such a powerful influence?
Well, they just had this incredible way of making even the most abstract concepts relatable and interesting.
Yeah.
We'd be discussing existentialism one minute and then debating the ethics of AI the next.
Wow.
They weren't just teaching philosophy. They were embodying a way of thinking, a way of questioning everything.
That's awesome. It sounds like they really sparked a real intellectual curiosity in you. Did you always know that you wanted to pursue this path, related to philosophy and spirituality?
Not at all. Actually, I started college as a pre-med student,
Oh, wow.
I had this whole plan mapped out, med school residency, becoming a doctor, the whole thing.
That's a pretty big shift. What prompted that change? Was it your philosophy professor's influence?
It was a few things, but a really pivotal moment for me was actually a close call with death.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was at a car accident during my sophomore year, and it really shook me up,
Yeah.
I remember lying in the hospital bed, and it was like this overwhelming sense of just how fragile life really is.
Yeah, that must have been a profound experience, especially at such a young age.
It was. It made me question everything I thought I knew about, like life and death, It was like suddenly seeing the world in this new light.
So in a way, this brush with death kind of led you on a search for deeper meaning.
Exactly. I started, like, reading everything I could get my hands on, philosophy,
Yeah.
religion, psychology, even quantum physics, I
Wow.
was trying to make sense of my own mortality to figure out what it all meant.
Sounds like you went on a full-fledged intellectual and spiritual quest.
I guess you could say that. And that's what eventually led me to the Tibetan book of Living and Dying. A friend recommended it, and it just clicked.
Oh, cool.
It helped me understand my own near-death experience, and it gave me this whole new perspective on, like, the meaning of life and death and everything in between.
It seems like this book was a real turning point for you, connecting deeply with your own personal experience.
Yeah, for sure.
And it also brought up the concept of soul trim, which is pure awareness.
Right.
Could you maybe remind our listener about that and how it connects to the Bardos we talked about earlier?
Of course. So soul trim refers to, like, the fundamental nature of mind. It's that underlying awareness that's
Yeah.
always there, beneath all the thoughts and emotions. It's like you might catch glimpses of it in those moments of quiet contemplation or deep focus.
Yeah, or even those little pauses between thoughts.
Exactly. And this concept of soul trim is super connected to the Bardos. The book suggests that as we move through the different Bardos, from life to death and beyond, it's this pure awareness that continues. It's not bound by the limitations of the physical body.
That's incredibly profound. It suggests that who we are at our core is something beyond our physical form, something that persists even after death.
That's the essence of what the Tibetan book of Living and Dying is exploring. It challenges us to consider that death might not be the end. It could be a transition to a different state of being.
Now, speaking of those different states of being, we were talking about the various Bardos before.
Right.
We covered the Bardo of life and the Bardo of death.
Yeah.
But the book also mentions the Bardo of dreaming and the Bardo of becoming. What can you tell us about those?
Well, the Bardo of dreaming is really fascinating.
Sure.
It refers to not just the dreams we have at night, but also to a more subtle level of consciousness that we can access through meditation and spiritual practices.
So it's like there are layers to dreaming.
Yeah, exactly.
And this Bardo encompasses both the familiar dreams we have at night and a deeper, more like profound level of dreamlike experience.
You got it. And in this Bardo, we encounter all these vivid images and emotions and thoughts that come from the depths of our mind. The book suggests that these dreamlike experiences can actually give us insights into the nature of consciousness, and they can even be a way to practice for navigating the other Bardos.
That's so interesting. It makes you wonder if, like, paying closer attention to our dreams instead of just dismissing them as random stuff could give us clues about our inner world.
Absolutely. The book encourages us to see dreams as a window into the subconscious, a place where we can explore parts of ourselves that we might not be aware of during our waking hours.
Now, what about the Bardo of becoming? What happens in that space?
So the Bardo of becoming is described as the state between death and rebirth. According to Tibetan Buddhism, it's a time when our consciousness is, like, wandering around, looking for a new womb to be born into.
So it's like a cosmic waiting room, a place where we prepare for our next life.
Yeah, you can think of it that way. And during this Bardo, we experience these karmic impulses that kind of push us towards certain types of rebirth.
Meaning that our actions in this life shape our experience in the Bardo of becoming and ultimately influence our future lives.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And the book really emphasizes that if we can face death with awareness, a calm mind, and a heart full of compassion, we can actually influence our journey through the Bardos and maybe even achieve liberation from this cycle of birth and death.
That's a powerful concept. It highlights how everything is interconnected.
Yeah.
And how important it is to live ethically and cultivate positive qualities. It's not just about this life. It's about the impact we have that extends far beyond our current existence.
Absolutely well said. And this understanding can be incredibly empowering. It reminds us that we have choices to make, and those choices matter, not just for ourselves, but for the whole web of life.
This is a lot to take in. I feel like we're just scratching the surface of these ideas.
Yeah.
It's clear that the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying is not a book to be rushed through. It's one to savor and contemplate.
You're so right. It's a book that, like, unfolds new layers of meaning every time you read it. It invites us to keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep diving deeper into the mysteries of life and death and everything in between.
Speaking of diving deeper, the book talks about meditation as a key practice for understanding the mind and connecting with our true nature.
Yes.
It's presented as more than just a way to relax. It's like a path to liberation. Can we talk about that a bit?
Absolutely. The book emphasizes that meditation is not about trying to empty your mind or achieve some blissful state of nothingness. It's about developing a clear and focused attention, a state of mindfulness that allows us to observe our thoughts and feelings without getting carried away by them.
I've tried meditation before, and my mind always seems to wander off on 1,000 tangents. Did the book offer any insights into how to, tame that monkey mind?
It did. The book acknowledges that a wandering mind is totally normal, especially when you're first starting out. It's all about patience and self-compassion. You don't have to beat yourself up for having thoughts. The key is to just gently bring your attention back to the present moment when you notice it drifting.
So it's more about training the mind like a muscle instead of trying to force it to be quiet.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And the book suggests a bunch of techniques for strengthening that mindfulness muscle, like focusing on your breath, visualizing a peaceful image, or repeating a mantra. It's all about finding what works best for you and making it a regular part of your life.
Consistency seems to be key. It's like anything you want to get better at, it takes time and effort. But I'm still curious about this path to liberation.
Yeah.
What does that actually look like in practice?
Well, the book suggests that regular meditation can lead to a huge shift in perspective. We start to see through that illusion of permanence. We become more balanced in the face of challenges, and we cultivate a deeper sense of compassion for ourselves and others.
That sounds pretty amazing. It's like we're breaking free from the mental and emotional patterns that cause us so much suffering.
Exactly. And this liberation isn't just for us. The book emphasizes that as we develop inner peace and compassion, those qualities naturally radiate out into the world, positively impacting everyone around us.
That's a really beautiful thought, that our personal growth can actually help create a more peaceful and compassionate world.
It is. And it reflects the interconnectedness of everything, which is a central theme in the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying.
Now, we also talked about the importance of having a spiritual teacher.
Yeah.
The book describes them as a guide who can provide invaluable wisdom and support. But for people who haven't found a teacher yet, what are some suggestions for navigating this path?
That's a great question, and it's something that a lot of people on a spiritual journey struggle with. The book suggests approaching the search for a teacher with discernment. Look for someone who embodies the qualities you want to cultivate in yourself: wisdom, compassion, ethical conduct, a deep understanding of the teachings. And it's also really important to trust your intuition and find someone who genuinely resonates with you.
It sounds like it's not just about finding someone with fancy titles or credentials.
Right.
It's about finding someone who truly embodies the qualities you aspire to.
Exactly. And remember, finding a teacher is not like a one-time thing. It's an ongoing process. You have to keep asking questions, keep discerning, and keep trusting your gut. And even if you haven't found a teacher yet, the book encourages us to stay open, keep learning, and trust that the right teacher will appear when the time is right.
That's such a hopeful message. It suggests that the path of spiritual growth is always open to us, regardless of whether we have a formal teacher or not.
Absolutely. And it's a reminder that we can find guidance and inspiration in so many places. Books, teachings, the wisdom of those who've walked the path before us.
Yeah, sometimes the best teachers are the ones we least expect. A book, a song, a conversation with a friend, or even just a moment of quiet reflection in nature.
Exactly. The key is to just stay open to the wisdom that's all around us.
That's a great reminder. Now, speaking of wisdom, there's one more important aspect of the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying that I think we should touch on: compassion.
Oh, absolutely.
It seems natural for a book about life and death to address this quality. How does the book approach compassion?
Well, the book emphasizes that compassion is not just feeling sorry for someone or pitying them. It's a deep understanding that we're all interconnected. A recognition that everyone wants to be happy and free from suffering.
So it's about recognizing our shared humanity, our common ground as beings navigating this crazy journey of life and death.
Exactly. And the book suggests that cultivating compassion is not only beneficial for others, but also for ourselves. When we offer kindness and understanding to others, we also cultivate those qualities within ourselves.
It's like a positive feedback loop.
Yes. Like compassion is a ripple effect that starts within us and spreads outwards, making the world a more harmonious and loving place.
You put it perfectly. And this understanding of compassion really ties back to the core message of the Tibetan book of living and dying. It's not just about death. It's about living a meaningful life, a life full of purpose and love.
Beautifully said. And as we continue to explore the wisdom of this book, I invite you to think about how you can cultivate more compassion in your own life. How can you be kinder to yourself and to others even when things are tough?
That's a beautiful invitation, and I hope it resonates with everyone listening. Take a moment to reflect on this as we move towards the final part of our deep dive into the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying. Welcome back to our deep dive into the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying. We've covered so much already, from those amazing Tibetan funeral processions to that pretty tricky concept of soul trim, a pure awareness.
Yeah.
And now we're circling back to the power of meditation. The book really presents it as this path to liberation, not just a way to relax, right?
Yeah, exactly. It emphasizes that it's not about forcing your mind to be quiet, but about cultivating a mindful awareness.
Okay.
You learn to just observe your thoughts and emotions without judgment, letting them come and go like clouds.
Yeah, I love that analogy. It really helps to visualize it. But I still find my mind wandering so much when I try to meditate.
Oh, that's totally normal,
Yeah.
especially when you're starting out. The book encourages patience and self-compassion. It's not about beating yourself up for having thoughts.
Yeah.
It's about gently bringing your attention back to the present moment whenever you notice it drifting.
So it's more about training your mind like you would train a muscle,
Exactly.
not about forcing it into submission.
Right. And it offers a bunch of techniques to help you strengthen that mindfulness muscle, focusing on your breath, visualizing a peaceful image, or repeating a mantra.
Okay.
It's about finding what works for you and sticking with it.
Consistency seems to be key. But I'm still curious about this whole path to liberation thing.
Yeah.
What does that look like, practically speaking?
Well, the book suggests that consistent meditation can lead to some pretty profound changes. You start to see through that illusion of permanence. You find more balance when things get tough, and you cultivate a deeper sense of compassion for yourself and others.
That seems incredibly empowering. It's like freeing yourself from those mental and emotional patterns that cause so much suffering.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that this liberation isn't just for our own benefit. The book highlights how, as we cultivate inner peace and compassion, those qualities naturally spread outward, positively affecting those around us.
That's a beautiful thought, that our personal transformation can actually contribute to a more peaceful and compassionate world.
It really is. And it speaks to the interconnectedness of all things, a central theme throughout the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying.
We've also talked about the importance of having a spiritual teacher, someone who can offer guidance and support. But for those who are still searching for a teacher, does the book have any advice?
It does. It suggests approaching the search with a discerning mind. Looking for someone who embodies the qualities you aspire to cultivate in yourself: wisdom, compassion, ethical conduct, and a genuine understanding of the teachings.
Okay.
But just as important is trusting your intuition, finding someone who truly resonates with you.
It's not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing.
Right.
Each person needs to find a teacher who aligns with their own path.
Exactly. And even if you haven't found a formal teacher yet, you can still find guidance in books, teachings, and the wisdom of those who have come before us. The book encourages us to stay open, keep learning, and trust the process.
That's comforting to hear, that the path of spiritual growth is always available to us.
It is. And remember, the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying isn't just for those seeking enlightenment or following a specific spiritual tradition.
Yeah.
It's full of insights that can benefit anyone.
Absolutely. It speaks to those universal human experiences of living and dying, offering practical advice on how to approach these profound transitions with more awareness, meaning, and compassion.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And at its core, the book is really an invitation to embrace the present moment, to live your life to the fullest, to love deeply, and to die without regret.
Yeah.
It encourages us to see death not as an ending, but it's a transformation, a transition into another realm of being.
That's such a powerful message to carry with us.
It is.
It reminds us that life is precious and every moment is a chance to cultivate wisdom, compassion, and a deeper connection with our true nature.
And I think that's the greatest gift the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying gives us: the invitation to live more consciously, to face both life and death with courage and grace, and to embrace the journey with an open heart.
Wow, that's a beautiful way to sum it up. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive.
It was my pleasure.
I hope it sparked some new ideas and inspired you to explore these profound concepts even further.
Me too. And remember, the journey doesn't end here. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep opening your heart to the wisdom that's all around you.
And that's it for this deep dive into the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying. Thanks for listening.